Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Souza, and with me is Jeff Malinoff. What's up, Jeff?
Hello, mate. No. Hello, everybody. How are you today? I'm good. How are you? Fantastic. Hope you guys are having a great week before Thanksgiving if you're in the United States.
We have a lot to talk about in the world of soccer, but if you haven't checked out the GSMC Podcast Network, please do so. In addition to soccer, we do cover other sports, football, baseball. We do a sports show that's daily that you can subscribe to. All these podcasts you can subscribe to so you don't miss any
sport. We're going to do it, most likely.
Yeah, we have the insight. We have the news and notes. So today's topics, we got a lot to talk about, but Champions League, last week was a big week in the Champions League. We talked about the Tuesday matches last week. We have not discussed the Wednesday matches, which I think really stole the show of the week, especially Manchester United Juventus. We'll also talk about the Manchester Derby that took place this weekend, eventful week for Manchester United as they faced Juventus and City. We'll talk about those games, how they did, and where they go from here. Also, we will talk about some new coaching positions that have opened up, have been filled in England, in Spain, and we will talk about news and notes around soccer. We have news regarding Wayne Rooney. We have news regarding the English FA. MLS playoffs are in full swing. Lots to talk about. Even a story about rock, paper, scissors that we'll get to. I promise.
You will not believe this story because I didn't believe it when I first read it.
But first things first, the Champions League, we're in the thick of it now. We're almost at the end of the group stage.
The League of Champions.
Yes, we are almost at the end of the group stage as there's only 2 games to go. At this point, we're seeing clear indications on who will advance, who is struggling. But first, we have to talk about that huge match. Manchester United Juventus. What happened in that match, Jeff?
Manchester United won in a surprising, I believed it was an upset over Juventus, 2-1.
Yes, absolutely. On the road in Italy, a big result for Manchester United as they've been struggling a little bit. They win 2-1. When we look at the group, before we break down the game, they're at 7 points now. Juventus is at 9. It keeps Man United in striking distance, but more importantly, it keeps them afloat as the number 2 seed in the group, keeping off Valencia, because we know that if United had tied that game or lost, they'd either be even or actually behind Valencia.
Valencia is creeping up behind them. They're at 5 points to United 7, and so it's back and forth with them, definitely.
And Valencia is a solid team, and they actually defeated Manchester United last year in the playoffs in the Champions League to knock Manchester United out. So there is a little bit of history there. We know that it's a formidable opponent. So, Jeff, it was 2-1, United wins. Tell me the goals.
Well, Ronaldo scored in the 65th minute, which, not surprising anyone that he scored?
Not surprising, but let me tell you, it was a beauty of a goal.
When is he not kicking a beautiful goal?
You know, with all the highlights that he's had in his career, he got a pass over his shoulder as he's running towards the goal, and he catches it first time, right-footed blast to the side of De Gea. He had no chance. it was a sublime finish from a sublime player and just adding to the legacy that is Ronaldo. So he gets on the scoreboard. You're thinking, okay, Juventus, they've controlled most of this game. They just got their goal. Ronaldo never one to shy away from the big moment with a crazy celebration where he just pulls up his shirt.
Yeah, he's not shy.
He pulls up his shirt showing his abs. That's the only celebration he did. He just showed them off.
He's got some nice abs. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, he does a few sit-ups every now and then.
He's not eating carbs either. And I like my carbs.
He might eat a few, but he's burning off more than he's eating. Let's put it that way. So
some people are just born with natural sculpture-like body. Like, no, honestly,
hey, he's genetically gifted and he works extremely hard. So we got to get off of Ronaldo's abs for a moment, though. Back to the game.
We have to. No, I'm kidding.
You're thinking Manchester United is out because they're on the road, but what happened?
86 minutes. So this was close to end game here. Mata with the goal. From United. But then, in the 90th minute, we had an own goal.
Yes, Alexandro, I believe, was...
Yes, it was Sandro that had committed an own goal, which wasn't really his fault.
No, it just hit him as it went in.
But it's going to be on his record that he scored on his own team.
You know what?
So technically, he cost his team the game. When it comes to the recap and the box score.
Yeah, the ball hit him. He couldn't do anything about it, but unfortunately, he's the man that's going to get credited with the own goal. But the important issue here is that, Mourinho, the coach of Manchester United, he's been under fire lately. Will he be fired is a question that we've all been wondering. He makes 2 critical substitutions in that game. Mata comes on in the game. He scores a goal off a free kick. Then he puts in Fellaini. Fellaini is the difference maker in that own goal. He was the nuisance. He created a problem. And ultimately, those 2 substitutions were the difference in the game. And for all the flack that Mourinho's been getting lately, you have to tip your cap to him this time because he made 2 critical decisions that got his team 3 points on the road against possibly the best team in the world.
I mean, they have a good... explanation of why they're the best team in the world, Juventus-wise. And Manchester United has been a team that you can see has fallen off a little bit as the last couple of years have been on.
Yes,
especially with Manchester City rising up way above them. And so this win is a huge mark for that club, definitely against a team. It's a statement game.
Yeah, and after the game...
Like, hey, I'm still here.
After the game, Mourinho went onto the field and taunted the Juventus crowd with his hand on his ear, saying, "I can't hear you," because he had been getting jeered.
He Hulk Hogan them.
Yeah,
he did the Hulk Hogan.
Opposing fans will always have chants, and they'll jeer the opposing players and manager. So he went out there and said, "I can't hear you now," So he gave him one of those.
He probably heard some horrifying things, though, after that.
And then some Juventus players didn't like that, and some of them approached Mourinho to tell him to get off the field. And Mourinho's always one to be in the spotlight, always be in the middle of the drama.
There's always that one guy on your team that you're just like, okay, shut it.
Sometimes it's the coach, right? Sometimes it just is.
Sometimes it's the coach that gets a little overexcited.
Yeah. So, all in all, though, the result is what matters. It was a massive result in Manchester United qualifying for the second round. We know that if they don't qualify out of the first round, it would be a huge, huge failure and probably lead to the firing of Mourinho. He may be let go at some point regardless, but that would accelerate that process.
I think that's why he was all about the "I don't hear you" thing, because it was like, this is my last stand probably. This is my biggest win of my coaching so far, so I better take this in as much as I can. Yeah,
absolutely. So they get the massive, massive win there. And they move on. They do play Young Boys and Valencia in their last 2 games. So if they can get
them the win over Young Boys, but maybe I'm going to say tie for Valencia against Valencia.
And that's basically all they would need. If they draw Valencia and they win against Young Boys, they're in.
Yeah.
So
I don't see them losing to the Young Boys, though. Do you?
No, not at this stage. Not with this. They're riding a wave right now. Now, we'll get into their last game. They did play in the Manchester Derby this week. That didn't end as well for them as the Juventus game. We'll talk about that next segment. But let's move on to the other game. Valencia and Young Boys, they did play each other?
Yes, Valencia won this game 3-1.
3-1, yes. So they would have preferred if Manchester United lost, so they could have jumped them, right? But
But Mina had 2 goals this game. He had a goal in the 14th minute, then at the 42nd minute. So there was a red card though for the young boys. They were
man.
Yeah. I apologize if I butcher this. Sinago.
Oh yeah, Sinogo. Yeah, Siku Sinogo. Yeah, he got a red card later on in that game.
Yeah, it was at the 77th minute. So maybe too late to get a red card going.
Yeah, at that point, you're already down 2 goals.
Well, I mean, this team's kind of done anyway, so it's not really that big of a deal if he gets suspended for probably the next Champions League game against Manchester.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, young boys unfortunately for them, they're in an incredibly tough group. I mean, you got 3 top teams.
Would you say did we say it was maybe the toughest group, or like at least top, 3?
I would say it's easily in the top 2. The Napoli, Liverpool, PSG. Actually, top 3, because Napoli, Liverpool, PSG in Group C is a big group, but also Group B, Barcelona,
Inter, and Tottenham.
Yeah, that's a big group too.
And like PSV has to deal with Tottenham, Inter Milan, and Barcelona too. So it's just like there's always that one team that, like Red Star has been holding their ground, honestly, in Group C. I know they only have 4 points, but still, they beat Liverpool. They held their ground. They're not going down quietly. But young boys have gone down quietly.
So let's talk about some of the other scores from Wednesday's matches. Who's next on the list there?
Sure, let's do Victoria and Real Madrid. Real Madrid
5-0.
Yeah, 5-0, 5-0, 5-zip, 5-nada. It was a Benzema game for him because he had a goal in the 20th minute and the 37th minute, and really, everything else was just unnecessary.
Yeah, Gareth Bale got on the score sheet, Casemiro and Toni Kroos.
Casemiro had the goal in between Benzema's 2 goals. So there was already 3 goals by the 40th minute.
Yeah, and 4 by halftime. So it was over early in that game. That's a team. Real Madrid is getting back on track, and we'll talk about their situation later on in the show when it comes to their coaching search and how that's going. But they've been on the right track after firing Julian Lopetegui. So they fire him. Since that time, they've seen this wave of positive results. Goals are coming in. We talked about how they had struggled to find goals for most of the season domestically and in Champions League. But now they seem to be in the right mindset, the right track. So what about some other games?
We could do Roma and Moscow.
Yeah, Roma with the win there.
2-1. Mm-hmm. And this game was actually seemed close throughout the entire game, no? I mean, there was the goal at the 4th minute, but then Moscow came back with a goal in the 50th minute, and then it came back the 59th minute by Pellegrini, and it was just always Moscow was always trying to come back. They were always on the back burner.
Yeah, it was a good game. I mean,
they were always chasing. That was what I was looking for.
Very back and forth. Possession was split. Shots on goal were close. It was a good game. Roma got the result. Fortunately for them, they get the win. They're winning most of the game. They give up the lead, but then they kind of close the door on that as they score again to take the lead. But that really puts an end to Moscow. That really solidifies Group G.
Roma and Real Madrid are tied with 9 points. They're both in it, so I don't think the rest matters for them in the long run.
Yeah, Roma and Madrid really just need a point in their last 2 matches to clinch, and they should be able to do that easily. But yeah, for Roma, they have a chance to actually win the group, and we know that winning the group allows you to play a second-place team in the next round. So there is a little bit of importance of winning the group. Is it everything? No, but it does give you a slight advantage to get first and not second in your group. So, what about another game?
How about Manchester City and Shakhtar?
Yeah, they got their revenge for losing to Shakhtar earlier in the competition
by 6-0. It was it was the first 3 goals happened within 50 minutes. 13, 24, and 48. And by 3 different people. 1 penalty kick, Silva, Jesus, and Sterling. And then Jesus again with another penalty kick. So he had the hat trick at the end at the 92nd minute, but 2 of his goals were penalty kicks.
And I'll tell you what, of this game, other than the 6-goal scoreline, the most notable moment was actually when Gabriel Jesus fell in the box. He gets called. They call a penalty where he trips over his own feet. The defender is not close to him. The referee immediately points to the spot. He gets a penalty kick and he scores it. And it was the best case onto why the Champions League needs to get VAR included, because that would easily have not been called a penalty.
Replay?
Yeah, VAR. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he trips over. He goes to chip the ball over the goalie's head, like he tries to scoop it over his head, and he kicks the ground and he trips.
He planted his foot.
Yeah, and he falls on his face first.
I think we've all done that once or twice, fall flat on our face.
We have.
Blame somebody else for it.
And then he scores a goal, and then he celebrates, and it's like, man, come on. Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah.
He celebrated kind of like he won the lottery. You know what I mean? Just like, really?
Yeah, it was kind of disgraceful in my opinion. But yeah, what about another game in that day?
Well, do we have any other
Bayern Munich beat Athens.
Well, I was thinking like other games that are like that 6-0. Fortunately, there wasn't.
No.
Bayern beat Athens 2-0. Bayern scored in the 31st. Actually, it was the same guy and a penalty kick.
Lewandowski.
Yes, I was going to try to say that name. That's a long name.
Robert Lewandowski.
Yeah,
yes,
but he got
Polish
a penalty
international.
kick and he got a goal in the 71st first minute. So he did pretty well for himself. Keeps Bayern as the first place in their group. At Group E, they have 10 points, and behind them is Ajax with 8 points. So they're I wouldn't say comfortable, but they're firmly in first place at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Ajax, they played Benfica. What happened there?
Oh, Benfica. Well, what happened with Benfica is they tied Ajax 1-1, and it was just pretty even throughout. There was an early goal by Jonas in the 29th minute, and then Tadic in the 61st minute, and just there were a lot of yellow cards in this game, though. There was 4 on for Ajax and 3 for Benfica, which seems to be like a lot, no?
Yeah, but this game was kind of the most important game of the group, as Benfica was chasing Ajax in points. So Ajax getting the draw really puts Benfica out of the competition. They'd probably have to win against Bayern Munich and Athens, while Ajax loses both games or draws one of the two.
And if you look at both their shots on goal, they both had 10 shots.
Yeah, it was a very contested game.
They both had 10 shots, 8 for Benfica on the goal and 4 for Ajax. So they had a really even amount of goals shot. So this game just mattered of like who's the one that scored and who's the one to hold on to the tie. Obviously, Ajax held on to the tie, and they would take a tie absolutely over a loss.
Yes, big time.
And so they still hold on to that second place. They're obviously going to take the second place in Group E.
Yeah, they'll be massively happy with that result. So, last game of the day was the Lyon game.
Yes. Lyon and Hoffenheim tied at 2-2. And for both these guys, like there was at the 19th minute and the 28th minute for Lyon were the back-to-back goals. Took the Hoffenheim at the 92nd minute to score the tying goal. So it's kind of a heartbreaker for Lyon.
Yeah, and Hoffenheim was down 2-0, got a red card, and then scored 2 goals. So they had a massive comeback. I mean, that is, if they end up getting through...
It was not like a direct red card either. It was 2 yellows for him. So it wasn't like anything serious, I guess you can say.
If they end up getting through, though, I mean, we're going to look at that as the biggest moment, is that they came down, because now they're only 3 points behind Lyon. They would have been down 6 points, and they come back and they draw the game, being a man down, 2 goals down. That's huge. That hardly ever happens, so hats off to them.
That's absolutely demoralizing for Lyon also.
Yeah, so I think we need to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about that big Manchester derby, City United, the game of the week, especially in England. Absolutely one of the biggest games in the entire world. We'll do that next.
Are Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy, to which conference is the best. We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. In the first segment, we talked about Champions League, and we will now shift our focus. We'll stay with Manchester United. We spoke about them at length in the first segment. Well, they had another big game last week. It was just a huge week for Manchester United fans as they faced Juventus, and then at the weekend they faced Manchester City, their nemesis, their hated inner-city rival. Manchester City, a club that had a lot of misfortune and then were bought one night and all of a sudden became one of the biggest teams in the world. So things have changed in Manchester. Manchester's been blue for a couple years now.
Which one, City or United?
Yeah, blue, right?
Get it.
So the Manchester Derby happens this weekend, and Jeff, what happened in that game?
Well, they were City was up 2-0 early in the game by Silva and Aguero with the 2 goals to start the game early for 2-0 for City. City, I was right. Mm-hmm. And Martial had the penalty kick to make it 2-1. Gundogan sealed it with a goal at the 86th minute to give Manchester City the 3-1 win over United. And now City is feeling blue with happiness and United feeling blue with sadness.
Yes, so this game, City ran away with it. Obviously, the Gundogan goal later on in the game, but for the most part, City had control of this game. I thought Manchester United played tough, though. They created some chances to score. If you look at the stat line, you'll see a disparity between the shots attempted and the possession, but I thought Manchester United did well in hitting them on the break sometimes and creating some chances. We knew that City would be on the front foot in this game. We knew that they would control the game. The goal that Gundogan scored was a beautiful team goal. I think there was 40 passes completed before he scores. It was a nice team goal, back and forth, inside and out, possession, and then Gundogan finds the space in behind the defender. Smalling is left looking. De Gea is left helpless. City takes a 3-1 win.
And this kind of shows United and how, compared to the elite teams, they're no longer elite.
Yeah, they have struggled. They're not the same team they were with Sir Alex Ferguson.
Sorry to interrupt, but just comparing the goal differential for these two teams, City and United, is something to behold. 31 goal differential for Manchester City and -1 for Manchester United. That's an incredible difference.
It is an incredible
20
difference.
20 points to 32 points. You can tell City was overwhelming United.
Yeah, and they've been overwhelming the Premier League this year and in general. But yes, you're right. Manchester United, they're now in 8th place, and sitting at 20 points after 12 games is not ideal, not where they want to be. They're looking up at teams like Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea, Liverpool, and City. But not only that, they're looking up at Bournemouth and Watford, who they're tied in points with, but behind in goal differential. I still think that we'll see United finish in the top 6, but it's definitely a struggle so far. But this game is another game where Guardiola wins against Mourinho. Pep Guardiola, obviously famous for being the coach with Barcelona before he moved on to Bayern Munich and then settling with Manchester City. And we're seeing City play a different brand of soccer that the English Premier League really isn't seeing other teams play. Like Liverpool has been great, but in a different way. Manchester City, Guardiola has been able to bring over some of that Barcelona style, those tactics, and make it work. And as you can tell, and as you mentioned, 31 goal differential. I mean, that's big. So will this be the game that Mourinho gets fired? I do not believe so, as he did win.
That seems a tad much.
Well, about a month ago, it sounded like he was already on his way out from United. Leaks happened where it was reported that they were going to fire him in the coming days, and then they didn't. So I think that his job is safe for now because of the win against Juventus, which is funny because Juventus is arguably a better team than Manchester City, and they were able to go to Italy and get that win. So it'll be interesting to see it happen.
Is it one of those things where it's like a bad team beat a good team beat a great team, that bad team was better than the great team?
I mean, I think a lot of people would say City and Juventus are on the same tier, but Juventus has had more success, especially recently in the internet, like in Champions League, because City has been failures when it comes to that competition. They've underwhelmed, whereas Juventus has gotten really close a few times lately. The problem is that Juventus has ran up against Real Madrid every single time they get close, and they end up usually losing that matchup, right? So, but yeah, it's just another game where, you know, it's the Jose Mourinho effect, I guess. Like one game, you watch United play, and you're like, man, this guy is a genius. The next game, you're like, man, I think the team could have been a little bit more prepared, or maybe they could have fought a little bit more. But yeah, I think he stays. We'll see what happens, though. The transfer window is coming up, Jeff. In January, teams are able to sign and sell players back and forth. There's 2 transfer windows, one in the summer, one in the winter. The mid-season one is coming up. We'll see how aggressive Manchester United is in terms of bringing in players, because we saw that Mourinho was very upset over the summer because they didn't bring in the talent that he was looking for. He wanted at least 1, possibly 2 new defenders. He didn't get them, and he was a little bit upset about it. And he was public with his frustrations to the club by not bringing in the guys that he wanted to target this offseason. So during the middle of the season transfer window, maybe we'll see. Do you think that United will buckle down and spend some serious cash in January, or do you think they'll ride out this season, change managers, and then spend money?
I mean, it wouldn't hurt to spend money in mid-season and then keep going with it at the end of the season. Like, it wouldn't hurt to look around. Like, I don't see them doing anything huge in the mid-season, but I mean, just to get some depth, maybe. But as soon as they get it, I think if they fire the coach and get a new coach, then it's time to really lay out the big checks.
Right.
But for this mid-season, I think it's maybe just play it safe, but also look around. Why not? It can't hurt to look.
And I think that'll be
window shop in mid-season. There he is.
I think it'll be a big indicator of his future based on what they do in the winter transfer period, because if they pull out the checkbooks, if they buy some players, you know, that are expensive, maybe it signals that Mourinho's going to stick around because the club has faith in him. But if they choose to not spend it all, it might signal that they're already looking ahead, that they're waiting to spend after they get their new head coach in the summer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Waiting until you have the new face of the place and then see what players want to come or want to transfer or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we had other games that happened in the English Premier League over the weekend. We saw Liverpool beat Fulham 2-0. Salah and Shaqiri scored in that game. Any other scores from England this week?
Well, actually, I just got a breaking news. Chelsea's facing a 2-year transfer ban.
Okay. For
FIFA recommends suspensions after investigation into signing of 14 under 18 players. Yeah.
Okay, so Chelsea's under investigation. A lot of these teams do go under investigation for improper fun. There are rules regarding how old you can sign players and what players you can sign and things like that. So,
but 2 years, that's a kind of big.
I will say though that a lot of times where these things happen, they don't actually happen. Like
Investigation happens, but the ban doesn't go through,
or like it gets reduced to like they can't buy anybody for 6 months or something like that. But I would be surprised.
This is what FIFA recommends, a 2-year ban. So
yeah,
it might happen. But I thought that would be an interesting topic because I literally just got an update.
And Chelsea tied Everton over the weekend 0-0.
Yes, they did. Liverpool beat the first place, lost to second place, or lost to last place 2-0. I know they're second place, but they're
No,
30.
Liverpool won.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying Liverpool is second place, but
Beat
they
last place.
basically
Okay.
beat last place. That's what I was saying. I know that sounded weird, but I was trying to say that I know they're second place, but they are close enough so it would be first place. You wouldn't have mistaken it.
Right. Okay.
One of the best teams versus the worst team. There it is.
Arsenal and Wolves played.
They tied.
Another impressive game by Wolves, though, as they play another top team.
Wolves have a lot of tenacity. They're like wolves. Actual
They-
wolves.
They run in packs on the field. It's crazy. But anyways,
They have a bunch of fur pelts on them. I don't understand it.
they played well. They were unlucky to not get the win away at Arsenal, which is interesting because Arsenal looked like, if you didn't know the payroll of both teams, you would have expected Wolves actually to be the more expensive team. They really took it to Arsenal. Arsenal was lucky to get a draw. I think most of their fans would definitely agree with that statement. They never looked like they were the better team, even though they held a lot of possession in the game. It seemed like they had a lot of problems creating chances and going forward, where Wolves were very dangerous on the counterattack, as they always are. So,
Should we talk about Saturday's games as well?
absolutely.
Tottenham beat Palace 1-0.
Yes. So Tottenham gets the win over Palace. Kind of an ugly win for Tottenham, and they've been doing this recently where they're getting
win to
results.
win, my friend.
They're getting results, and I get that, but they are leaving a little bit to be desired. It makes you wonder if they're actually going to go into a slump because they're not winning games. Like this game, they should have won 2-3-0 with the players that they have, with Harry Kane. I mean, they have the talent, but they squeak by a struggling Palace team. It's another squeak by game for Tottenham.
Well,
So,
looking at Tottenham, they're 9 wins, no draws, 3 losses. So they're still playing relatively well, 27 points in total. But, no draws kind of hurts them almost a little bit if you're just taking the losses. So I guess we'll see if it's a down point. But, again, they have to bounce back next week and see how they do.
and their next game is against Chelsea.
This
So
is a big test.
They're okay. So when I talked about they might go into a slump, Jeff, here are their next opponents. They play Chelsea, then they play Inter in Champions League. Then December strikes. They play Arsenal, Leicester City, Barcelona. Then they play Arsenal and Everton.
I think
and Wolves.
That sounds really rough.
Yeah, they have a tough run of games coming up. So if they don't better their form, if they don't improve their play, they could be facing some losses.
Yeah, absolutely. This could be a serious issue for them if they don't step it up. But West Ham, moving on, West Ham and Huddersfield tied at 1-1.
It's a big tie for Huddersfield.
Yeah. Leicester City, speaking of them, tied with Burnley, 0-0.
Yes,
So-
kind of a subdued game,
Yeah. Newcastle won. They beat Bournemouth.
which is crazy because Bournemouth has been at one of the top teams, one of the surprise teams this year. Newcastle has looked very poor, but hey, they win, and they're improving their status now as they are now in 14th place. They are not in the relegation zone as of today.
Yes, the relegation zone goes to Cardiff, Huddersfield, and Fulham.
Mm-hmm.
But Southampton is dangerously close to that edge, as well as Palace, because they also have 8 points, as well as Cardiff.
Yes. Cardiff got that massive win, though, against Brighton. Brighton really stepped on their own foot there where they got the red card in the 34th minute, Dale Stevens. It's an unfortunate result because Brighton had been playing well, and to lose against Cardiff. Cardiff is, in my opinion, the worst team in the league this year.
Well, they're not the dead last.
They're not as of today, that's true. But we'll see how their season goes forward. But yeah, I think that's it.
Games,
Yeah, we'll take a break. When we come back, speaking of Fulham, we have some new coaches in the world, one in England, one in Madrid. Let's talk about those in detail, who's in, who's out, and what that means for their future. We'll do that next.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be, visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, of course, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. We just talked about the Manchester Derby and other action as it pertained to English soccer. So, we have new coaches. We're at an international break right now, so this is kind of a time period where some adjustments are made, where new coaches are some coaches are fired, some new coaches are appointed. Some interesting news out of Madrid. So they fire Lopetegui just about 2 weeks ago, and they're looking for a new coach. But in the meantime, they give Santiago Solari the keys to the car, the keys to the Maserati. And
who doesn't like a Maserati?
And when you're Real Madrid, I think that club is compared to something like that, like a Maserati, like a sports car, Lamborghini. Okay, so he gets his chance.
Bugatti.
He gets his opportunity to go from the B team to the first team manager. And since he's been appointed, they have been undefeated. They have scored goals. Well, the time came where they needed to make a choice. Either hire him on permanently for the rest of the season or go elsewhere. What do you think they did?
I think they've honestly made the right choice. I mean, going undefeated really speaks for itself now.
Yeah, and they gave him a contract till 2021, which is surprising. So,
yeah.
Santiago Solari has signed a contract. So, 42 years old. He is a former Real Madrid player, so he knows the system. He knows the club very well. And since he's taken over, the team has scored goals. We talked about in previous podcasts how they were setting records at Real Madrid for their droughts in goal scoring abilities. And, we talked about them losing Ronaldo and how that affected the team. Well, since Solari has taken over, they've scored 4 goals, 2 goals, 5 goals, and 4 goals in their last 4 games. So,
when someone is a former member of that club and they're starting to coach, they know this. They know the system. They know the
pressure.
They know what the owner wants. What the atmosphere is like.
Mm-hmm.
You just have a familiarity with it that none other coaches really have when they're coming into a new club, and I think that's really taken advantage. I mean, like you said, they're scoring goals. They're improving on all aspects. They were droughting when it comes to goals, and now they're flooding in goals. So obviously something's working there.
And they're in 6th place, which is crazy. There should never be a time where they're that low on the table, but they're only 4 points behind Barcelona. Barcelona was defeated by Real Betis over the weekend, 4-3. Surprising result, but that result, coupled with Madrid's win, has now placed them only 4 points. It's a very tight table. It's a very tight La Liga right now. So we'll see how it goes moving forward. We'll see how Solari is in big matches. As we know, being the coach of Real Madrid, being the manager, you have to perform in big moments because this is a club that doesn't accept losing. They don't accept falling short of their goals.
Do not tolerate it.
No, they're ruthless. They make no bones about it. That's who they are. And, right or wrong, people love them for it. So, moving on to England. Fulham. We talked about Fulham, Jeff, how they're at the bottom of the table. They're struggling. They made a change with their manager. Slava Jokanovic is out as manager. He was their manager who brought them to the Premier League as they were a newly promoted side. So he was their manager. It was his team, his tactics that got him here, but he has been struggling mightily in their first season back in the English Premier League. And I saw this coming. I kind of saw it because this team was bleeding goals. I mean, Fulham, they can score goals, but you just cannot give up the amount of goals that they give up and think that you're going to survive a whole season. I mean, as of right now, Fulham is at a negative 20 goal differential through 12 games.
How negative of them.
Yes. So,
get it?
I got it.
Good.
So, they needed a change. And you know who they went and got?
Who'd they get?
They got a coach who has won an English Premier League title. They got a manager.
Well, I mean, you got to go with a guy with experience and success, so why not?
They got a manager who took a team in the most unlikeliest of fashions to a championship.
Wait a minute. You don't mean who
Yes.
I think you mean.
Claudio Ranieri.
The former I can't pronounce it. Leicester City?
Yes. The former Leicester City manager, Claudio Ranieri. He is appointed new manager of Fulham. So he has been in a situation where he's had a new team.
He's a turnaround coach.
Mm-hmm. He was let go of Leicester City after they struggled last season to start the year. Even though he had led the team to their first Premier League title ever just a couple years ago. But
hey,
he is back.
Once you get all that money, you're going to get a little greedy. You know what I mean?
We have seen Ranieri back in England lately because of the passing away of the chairman for Leicester City. Ranieri was in attendance. Yeah, he had a great relationship with that chairman. So we've seen him recently, but now we'll see him weekly on the sideline managing Fulham, the London-based club. So you know what I found very interesting, though?
What did you find interesting?
Before they hired Claudio Ranieri, they reached out to former Arsenal coach and current free agent manager Arsene Wenger.
Really?
Yes, which is interesting because Fulham and Arsenal are both London-based clubs. It would have given Arsene Wenger the ability to stay in London, or at least go back to London. He knew he's French.
More convenient that way.
It would have been...
do you think he has a home there?
I'm sure. It would have been quite interesting to see Arsene Wenger back in the English Premier League after just a few months away coaching a crosstown club in Fulham. But it did not happen. He did not accept the role, it sounds like. But it is interesting that they reached out to him first, and I like the ambition by a club like Fulham. And, Fulham is known for creating a environment that focuses on their youth system. They build up players. They don't spend a lot of money on players, but they have a very known, incredible academy in England. And Arsene Wenger, I think that kind of fits him. He likes that. He likes molding young players. I think it might have been a good fit.
He likes building his own team.
I think it might have been a good fit, but we won't see it happen, at least for now, as Ranieri will at least be the coach through the rest of the season. One thing that I do find interesting, though, is Wayne Rooney, former English captain, former English international. He will be back in England, back in London this week, and he is playing a farewell game for the English national team. They're bringing him up for one last game so he can get his proper retirement game.
You think he'll try a good bicycle kick again?
Yeah,
And
probably
break
not.
his back?
But he's playing against the United States in a friendly in Wembley, so it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see him back.
He might be playing against like some of his teammates.
Yeah, I'm not sure if any of the DC United players have been called up. I haven't looked at the roster, but
I mean, it's a possibility.
it's definitely again. There will be players on the field that he has played with or against this year for sure in the MLS. So he just capped off a great first season in the MLS. He narrowly lost to Zlatan for newcomer of the year in the United States. But he has been a great addition for the MLS. It's going to be cool. I don't expect him to start. I would say that he's probably going to come on in the last 20 minutes or so as a substitute. He'll get the proper, welcome by the crowd. It's a big deal in England, as he's going to be regarded as one of the best English players of all time. We know
That's
that.
saying something, too.
And I believe his first game for English, I think he might be the youngest player to ever wear the English shirt, actually, 18 years old. So I remember him. I remember the baby-faced Wayne Rooney, and now he gets his proper farewell. So I think that's really cool that they're doing that. Again, that's this Wednesday against the United States. Make sure to check out that game. We'll see who the U.S. plays out there. We've seen them go with the youth movement. We'll see if they continue to do that as they look at qualifying for the next World Cup. We know that they cannot go another World Cup qualification without qualifying. So,
should we take a break?
We should.
Let's do
Take
it.
a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about some news and notes around the world of soccer.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. We just went over the new coaches in the world of soccer. Fulham has a new coach, Claudio Ranieri, as you may know, from Leicester City. And Santiago Solari has accepted the managerial position for Real Madrid until 2021. Of course, we know that can change if he's not successful this year. They're not afraid to make a change if needed, no matter what the contract says. So we have some interesting news and notes around the world of soccer. Jeff, we'll start
With a funny one?
We'll start with one of the weirdest things that you'll hear in the world of soccer today.
So in the Women's Super League, which is a women's soccer league in London, or maybe just England, I'm not entirely sure what the destinations are, though.
Yes.
There was an official referee going to the game. He forgot his coin, which... What do you think you would do if you forgot your coin for the coin toss at the game?
I'd probably go ask somebody like in the crowd, or maybe like a cameraman, like, hey, do you have a quarter I could borrow?
Do you have a pound? Do you have a euro?
A quid?
A quid. Do you have anything that's a coin that I can flip and that has a heads or tails marker? No, he went a different way.
Yeah, he did. He changed it up, huh?
He did something I don't think we'll ever see in a professional sport again.
What's that?
He made the two women on either side do rock, paper, scissors.
No, he didn't.
Winner, and that decided the sides.
Wait. He made them rock, paper, scissors to see who got the ball and who got which side?
Yeah, basically on choosing the sides, yeah. Isn't that the most ridiculous thing?
And he got suspended for this?
He did get suspended for this.
I think you should give the man a race. He's just problem solving out there.
I'm sorry, it's easier to get a coin than do something completely different and abide the rules. The rules are there for the rules. There are rules of this game, and Come on now.
All right, so when I was going through college...
Okay, how about this? Like, oh, we can't do a coin. Okay, let's play a game of tag on the field before the game starts.
So when I was going through college,
Okay.
I refereed soccer games to make some cash, right?
For like
a nice job.
Like kid soccer?
For adults mostly, for like the recreation district or whatever. Like
you
adult.
cursed that out a lot?
Oh, yeah, for sure. But the thing is that it's an easy job when you're in college, right? You can work in the evenings. You make some good money, doing that, like $25-$30 a game. That's $25-$30 an hour. Pretty good for a college kid. So sometimes I'd forget my coin. Absolutely.
It's not that hard. Okay, I understand.
But you have a lot of gear, right?
Yes, I understand that. But you know how easy it is to find a coin? Look on the sidewalk or something.
So I would always hold... If I did that, I'd always either make them do rock, paper, scissors.
Okay, they're at a stadium, right?
Yeah.
Go to like a vendor and say, "Hey, do you have any change? Can I borrow a quarter? I'll give it back to you, I promise."
So sometimes I'd make them do
for
rock.
the game to start. Give me some change, hot dog man.
So sometimes I'd do rock, paper, scissors, but sometimes I'd hold.
I
Yeah,
don't believe
absolutely.
You.
Sometimes I'd hold my hand behind my back and hold a 1 or a 2, and I'd ask them to guess, and then I'd pull it out.
Shut your trap.
What's wrong with that?
That's stupid.
It's rec soccer.
Well, okay. What if it was the World Cup?
No, I wouldn't make them do that. But this was the Women's Super League in England.
It's super.
How many people were in attendance is what I'm wondering.
Hundreds of thousands of potential people. I said potential.
Potential people?
Potential people.
I don't even know how that makes sense, but I'll go with it.
Like, as in, there's potentially that many people there we don't know because it's probably not televised. It's not televised in America.
Mm-hmm.
But I will look for this game. Hold on. I'll find this and I'll show you if I could find it. I'm more motivated now than I have been all day.
So, in England, though, here on a serious note, the English FA is considering cutting the foreign player allotment because each club can only have so many foreign players. They have to have a certain number of English players. Right now, it's at 17 for foreign players. They're considering cutting it to 12. That is a significant change.
Okay, yeah, that is actually a big change. Do you want to go back to the?
But before we go back to it, because this is important, that can affect teams like Manchester City, like Manchester United, who have a lot of international players. They have a lot of players not of English origin, so they're considering making this change. Quite honestly, I think it's the wrong move. I think you should let teams get as many foreign players as you want. You should let them run the clubs how they see fit. If they want to run a team that's mostly English-based, by all means. But if they want to run a club where they don't care where the person is from, I say allow that to happen. As basically it is now. 17 is a lot. 17, of 23, 25 players is a lot where you can allot them to foreign players. So, yeah, let's go back to what you were saying, Jeff.
Okay. First of all, apparently this was a televised game. Mm-hmm. This where rock, paper, scissors took place. And he's been suspended until December 17th. So a month, roughly. Is that too much for a simple mistake like this?
Yeah.
He'll now serve a 3-week suspension from November 26th.
Yeah, I think it's pretty funny, though. So, moving on. MLS playoffs are in full swing, although now that we're at an international break, they are 2 breaking in the playoffs. So November 25th, Portland Timbers and Sporting Kansas City will be the 2 teams playing for the Western Conference. And out east, we have Atlanta United against New York Red Bulls, and I think that's pretty obvious. New York Red Bulls and Atlanta have been the best 2 teams in the East by far this year. But it is surprising to see Portland, the number 5 seed. They get to play the number 1 seed Kansas City, but they are definitely the surprise team of the tournament so far. They got past their rival Seattle Sounders, so it'll be interesting to see if they can continue this journey, and move on to the MLS final. So, also in the United Soccer League, that's the 2nd division here in the United States, Louisville City won a championship, their 2nd championship. They beat Didier Drogba and the Phoenix Rising FC in the final. So
awesome name, by the way. I will continue to say that every time they're mentioned.
yeah, so congratulations to Louisville City. They're big club in the USL. They're one of the most supported teams with a great fan base. They really love their team out there. And it was interesting. They got past their arch rival, Cincinnati. They outlasted them in the tournament. Then now Cincinnati will go to the MLS, but Louisville City gets one up on their rival one last time. So congrats to them. Other than that, Jeff, I think we're done today, man.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Please tune us next week for the soccer podcast. But as always, there are other GSMC sports podcasts you can look at. Sports, there's just all sports one. There's a football one. There's a basketball one. There's a baseball one. There's even a fantasy football one. Mm-hmm. And if you want to hear more of us, which you should, we are entertaining, I hope. Please listen to those. And we will see you next Wednesday, if you don't, for the soccer podcast, because we know you will listen to that one.
See you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.